The shrill scream pierced the air as Karen's hands came crashing down, shattering the screen of my phone. Little did she know, the camera was still rolling, capturing her every rage-fueled movement. As I stood there, stunned, I knew this was more than just a broken device. It was the evidence I needed to expose her true colors once and for all. It had started out as a normal day. I was meeting my friend Sarah for coffee, eager to catch up on each other's lives. As I stepped into the crowded cafe, I spotted her at a table near the back, waving me over. "Hey, you," she said, reaching across the table to give me a warm hug. "I'm so glad you could make it." "Of course," I replied, settling into the chair across from her. "I've been looking forward to this all week." We fell into an easy conversation, sipping our drinks and sharing the latest updates. But as we chatted, I couldn't help but notice Karen, a mutual acquaintance, glaring at us from a nearby table. I'd never gotten along with her. There was always an underlying tension, a sense that she was constantly judging and disapproving of my every move. "Have you noticed Karen staring over here?" I asked Sarah, lowering my voice. She followed my gaze and sighed. "Yeah, I've noticed. She's been like that for weeks. I don't know what her problem is." I shrugged, trying to push the discomfort to the back of my mind. Probably just jealous that we're having more fun than she is. Just then, Karen stood up and started making her way towards our table. My heart rate quickened, unsure of what was about to unfold. "Can I help you, Karen?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Actually, yes, you can," she snapped, her eyes narrowed to slits. "I couldn't help but overhear your low conversation, and I have to say, I'm a bit offended." I glanced at Sarah, who looked just as bewildered as I felt. "Offended? I'm not sure I understand." "Oh, I think you do," Karen seethed. "You two think you're so better than everyone else, don't you? Always gossiping and judging." "That's not true at all," I protested. "We were just—" But before I could finish, Karen's hand shot out, knocking my phone from the table. I watched in horror as it tumbled to the ground, the screen shattering on impact. "There, now you know how it feels to have your precious little life disrupted," she spat, turning on her heel and storming out of the cafe. I stared at the remains of my phone, stunned into silence. Sarah reached across the table, placing her hand on mine. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. I wanted to say yes, that I was fine, but the truth was, I wasn't. This wasn't just about a broken phone. It was about the violation of my privacy, the utter disregard for my personal property. And deep down, I knew I couldn't let Karen get away with this. The ride home was a blur. Sarah insisted on driving me, worried that I was too shaken to operate a vehicle safely. I stared out the window, my mind racing with a million different thoughts. As soon as we pulled into my driveway, I jumped out of the car and rushed inside, ignoring Sarah's calls for me to wait. I needed to check the footage on my phone. If by some miracle, the camera had been recording when Karen smashed it, I might have the evidence I needed to finally put an end to her vindictive behavior. Carefully sifting through the shattered remains, I breathed a sigh of relief when the screen flickered to life. The camera had been rolling the entire time. I watched the footage with a mixture of horror and satisfaction, my fingers trembling as I witnessed Karen's outburst in vivid detail. Sarah found me hunched over the phone, my face etched with a determined expression. "What's going on?" she asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "I got it," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "I have the proof I need." Confusion flashed across Sarah's face, quickly replaced by realization. "You mean?" I nodded, a grim smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. Karen didn't know the camera was still on. She's done for. With newfound purpose, I began drafting an email to Karen, attaching the damning footage as evidence of her assault. I laid out the facts in a clear, concise manner, making it abundantly clear that I would be taking legal action if she did not issue a public apology and cover the cost of a new phone. As I hit send, a weight seemed to lift from my shoulders. No longer would I have to endure Karen's constant jabs and belittling behavior. This time, the tables had turned, and I was the one in control. But just as I was about to relax, a new wave of worry washed over me. What if Karen retaliated? What if she tried to delete the footage or come after me in some other way? The thought sent a chill down my spine, and I knew I couldn't let my guard down, not until this was fully resolved. "Are you sure you know what you're doing?" Sarah asked, her voice laced with concern. I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. "I have to do this, Sarah. For my own sanity and for everyone else she's hurt. Karen's reign of terror ends today." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. After sending the damning footage to Karen, I had braced myself for retaliation, fully expecting her to lash out in a desperate attempt to cover her tracks. But to my surprise, she remained eerily silent. That is, until the email arrived. "I need to see you." Now, the message read, Karen's words dripping with a mixture of fear and fury. I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. She knew she was cornered, and the thought of her squirming under the weight of her own actions filled me with a twisted sense of joy. Still, I knew I needed to tread carefully. Karen was nothing if not unpredictable, and I couldn't risk her finding a way to turn the tables on me. Gathering my courage, I agreed to meet her at a neutral location, a small cafe just a few blocks from my apartment. As I approached the designated spot, my heart pounded in my chest, every nerve ending on high alert. Karen was already seated at a table near the back, her eyes darting around the room nervously. When she caught sight of me, she gestured for me to join her, her movements jerky and unnatural. "I'm glad you could make it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I slid into the chair across from her, doing my best to maintain a neutral expression. "What do you want, Karen?" She fidgeted with the edge of the tablecloth, her gaze fixed on the worn wooden surface. I wanted to apologize for what happened the other day." I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow in surprise. "Apologize?" Karen nodded, her eyes finally meeting mine. "I shouldn't have reacted that way. It was wrong of me." I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms over my chest. And she took a deep breath, her shoulders sagging. "And I'm willing to pay for a new phone, to make up for the one I broke." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Karen, the same woman who had tormented me for years, was actually admitting fault and offering to make amends. It was almost too good to be true. "Wow, Karen. I have to say, I'm impressed," I replied, my tone laced with a hint of skepticism. "I never thought I'd see the day when you'd actually own up to your actions." She nodded, her gaze dropping back to the table. "I know I've been difficult, to say the least, and I'm sorry for that. But what you have on that video, it's not who I am. I just got caught up in the moment, you know." I regarded her carefully, searching for any sign of deception. "And what about the way you've treated me all these years? The constant put-downs, the passive-aggressive behavior? Are you going to apologize for that, too?" Karen's face flushed with shame, and for a moment, she looked genuinely remorseful. "Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry for that, too. I have a lot of issues I need to work through, and I took them out on you. It wasn't fair, and I'm sorry." I let her words sink in, my mind reeling. Could this be the start of a new chapter in our relationship? Or was it all just an elaborate ruse, a calculated attempt to weasel her way out of the consequences of her actions? Only time would tell. But for now, I was willing to give her the benefit of the doubt. After all, admitting fault and taking responsibility was the first step towards real change. "All right, Karen," I said, uncrossing my arms and leaning forward. "I'm listening." Over the next few weeks, I found myself in uncharted territory as I navigated an unexpected truce with Karen. True to her word, She had covered the cost of a new phone and even offered to help me set it up, her demeanor a stark contrast to the hostile, judgmental persona I had grown accustomed to. As we sat together, carefully transferring my contacts and photos, an uneasy silence hung in the air. I couldn't help but wonder what had prompted this sudden shift in behavior. Was it genuine remorse, or simply a calculated move to avoid the consequences of her actions? So, how have you been? Karen asked, her voice tentative. I glanced up, meeting her gaze with a mixture of caution and curiosity. I've been okay, I guess, adjusting to the new phone, for the most part. She nodded, her fingers fumbling with the charging cable. That's good. I'm really glad I was able to help with that. The awkwardness was palpable, and I found myself struggling to find the right words. Part of me wanted to dive in, to demand answers and explanations for her years of mistreatment. But another part of me, the part that had grown weary of the constant tension, yearned for a chance at peace. Karen, I have to ask. I began, my voice soft but serious. What changed? Why the sudden change of heart? She sighed, her shoulders sagging. Honestly, I've been doing a lot of self-reflection lately, and I realized that the way I've been treating you and others is, well, it's not okay. I leaned back, crossing my arms over my chest. Go on. I guess I've always had this need to feel superior, to put others down so I could feel better about myself, she continued, her gaze fixed on the phone screen. But that's not who I want to be. I don't want to be that person anymore. I studied her carefully, searching for any hint of deception. But as I watched the play of emotions across her face, I couldn't help but believe that she was being genuine. So what are you going to do about it? I asked, my tone softening slightly. Karen finally looked up, her eyes brimming with a newfound determination. I'm going to get help. Therapy, anger management, whatever it takes. I want to change, to be a better person. And I'm hoping that, maybe, you can give me a second chance. The words hung in the air, heavy with significance. A second chance. It was something I had never imagined Karen would ask for, let alone something I would even consider granting. But as I watched the vulnerability and sincerity in her expression, something inside me shifted. Okay, I said, the corners of my mouth curling into a tentative smile. Let's give this a try. Over the next several months, my relationship with Karen underwent a transformative shift. Gone were the days of constant tension and passive-aggressive behavior. In their place, a cautious but genuine rapport began to blossom. True to her word, Karen had thrown herself wholeheartedly into the process of self-improvement. She attended weekly therapy sessions, participated in anger management workshops, and even joined a local volunteer group, all in an effort to address the deep-seated issues that had fueled her toxic behavior. And the changes were undeniable. Gone was the snide, judgmental woman I had once known. In her place, a more introspective, empathetic individual emerged. She listened attentively when I spoke, no longer interrupting or dismissing my thoughts and concerns. She offered genuine apologies for her past transgressions, acknowledging the hurt she had caused without making excuses. It was a slow and at times uncomfortable process, as we both navigated uncharted territory of this newfound dynamic. But with each passing week, I found myself letting down my guard, bit by bit, until the ever-present tension that had once defined our relationship began to dissipate. One afternoon, as we sat together in a local park, sipping iced coffees and watching the world go by, Karen turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Can I ask you something?" she said, her voice soft but steady. I nodded, bracing myself for whatever might come next. "Why did you give me a second chance?" she asked, her gaze searching my face. "After everything I've done, I wouldn't have blamed you if you never wanted to speak to me again." I considered the question for a moment, weighing my words carefully. Honestly, I think it was because I saw the genuine effort you were putting into changing. The therapy, the volunteering, It showed me that you were serious about becoming a better person. Karen nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. And here I was, fully expecting you to slam the door in my face. I guess I underestimated you. I chuckled, nudging her playfully with my shoulder. Hey, don't sell me short. I'm full of surprises. She laughed, the sound light and carefree, a stark contrast to the tense, guarded woman I had known before. In that moment, I realized that this new, improved Karen was someone I could genuinely see myself befriending. If she kept up the hard work, that is. Well, I'm glad you gave me a chance, she said, her gaze warm and sincere. I promised I won't let you down. I reached out, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. I know you won't, Karen. I know. As the weeks turned into months, my friendship with Karen continued to deepen, surprising both of us with the strength of the bond that had formed. Gone were the days of constant tension and mistrust. In their place, a genuine camaraderie had blossomed, one built on a foundation of vulnerability, forgiveness, and a mutual desire for growth. Karen's transformation was nothing short of remarkable. She had thrown herself wholeheartedly into her personal journey, attending therapy sessions, anger management workshops, and even joining a local volunteer group. The changes were palpable. The snide, judgmental woman I had once known had been replaced by a more introspective, empathetic individual, one who listened intently and offered genuine apologies for her past transgressions. As we spent more time together, I found myself letting down my guard, cautiously opening up to the possibility of a true friendship. It was a slow and at times uncomfortable process, but with each passing week, the ever-present tension that had once defined our relationship began to dissipate. One afternoon, as we sat together in a local park, enjoying the warm autumn breeze, Karen turned to me with a contemplative expression. "Can I ask you something?" she said, her voice soft but steady. I nodded, bracing myself for whatever might come next. "Why did you give me a second chance?" she asked, her gaze searching my face. "After everything I've done, I wouldn't have blamed you if you never wanted to speak to me again." I considered the question for a moment, weighing my words carefully. Honestly, I think it was because I saw the genuine effort you were putting into changing. The therapy, the volunteering. It showed me that you were serious about becoming a better person. Karen nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. And here I was, fully expecting you to slam the door in my face. I guess I underestimated you. I chuckled, nudging her playfully with my shoulder. Hey, don't sell me short. I'm full of surprises. She laughed, the sound light and carefree, a stark contrast to the tense, guarded woman I had known before. In that moment, I realized that this new, improved Karen was someone I could genuinely see myself befriending, if she kept up the hard work, that is. Well, I'm glad you gave me a chance, she said, her gaze warm and sincere. I promise I won't let you down. I reached out, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. I know you won't, Karen. I know. As we continued our conversation, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and wonder at the transformation taking place before my eyes. It was a testament to the power of change, of the ability to confront one's demons and emerge as a better, more compassionate version of oneself. And in that moment, I knew that our newfound friendship was not just a temporary truce, but the foundation of a bond that would only grow stronger with time. As our friendship blossomed, Karen and I found ourselves navigating uncharted territory, not just in terms of our personal relationship, but in the way we interacted with our broader social circles. It was a delicate dance, filled with moments of triumph and tension, as we worked to reconcile our past conflicts and forge new connections. One evening, as we sat together over a glass of wine, Karen broached the subject that had been weighing heavily on both of our minds. Have you told anyone about what happened?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a sip of my drink, carefully considering my response. No, I haven't. I figured it was something we should keep between us, at least for now. Karen nodded, her shoulders visibly relaxing. I appreciate that. I know I need to own up to what I did, but I'm just not ready yet. There's still so much work I need to do on myself. I reached across the table, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. I understand. And I'm here for you, Karen, every step of the way. She smiled, her eyes shimmering with a mixture of gratitude and vulnerability. Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without your support. Over the next few weeks, we found ourselves navigating the tricky waters of reintegrating Karen into our social circles. It was a delicate process, filled with hushed conversations and wary glances, as our friends and acquaintances struggled to reconcile the new, improved Karen with the version they had known before. Some, like Sarah, were more receptive to the change, offering Karen a cautious but genuine olive branch. Others, however, remained skeptical, their distrust and resentment still too fresh to allow for true forgiveness. I just don't know if I can trust her again, one of our mutual friends confided to me one day. After everything she's done, how can I be sure she won't just revert back to her old ways? I listened intently, trying to understand their perspective. I know it's not easy, but Karen is really putting in the work. She's changed, I can see it. And she's been nothing but sincere with me. The friends sighed, shaking their head. I hope you're right, for both your sakes. As the weeks turned into months, the tension slowly began to dissipate, replaced by a cautious acceptance, a willingness to at least give Karen a chance to prove herself. And with each passing day, I watched as she continued to exceed expectations, her dedication to personal growth and atonement shining through in every interaction. It was a slow, sometimes arduous process, but as I observed the transformation unfolding before my eyes, I couldn't help but feel a growing sense of pride and admiration. Karen had faced her demons head-on, and in doing so, had not only reclaimed her own life, but had managed to forge a path towards healing and forgiveness. As the months turned into years, Karen's transformation continued to unfold, defying the expectations of those who had once written her off as a lost cause. Her dedication to personal growth and atonement was unrelenting, and as she navigated the treacherous waters of rebuilding trust within our social circles, her resilience and authenticity shone through in every interaction. One evening, as Karen and I sat together in the same cafe where the fateful incident had occurred, she turned to me with a pensive expression. "Do you remember that day when I smashed your phone?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. I nodded, the memories flooding back with a palpable intensity. Of course, it was one of the lowest points in our relationship. Karen sighed, her gaze dropping to the tabletop. I think about that day a lot, you know. The shame, the regret. It's something I'll have to live with for the rest of my life. I reached across the table, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. But you've come so far since then, Karen. The work you've done, the changes you've made, it's truly remarkable. She smiled, a glimmer of pride shining in her eyes. I couldn't have done it without you, you know. Your willingness to give me a second chance, to stand by me even when others had given up, it meant the world to me. Well, you've more than earned it, I replied, my own smile widening. I'm proud of you, Karen. Truly. As we sat there, basking in the warmth of our renewed friendship, I couldn't help but marvel at the journey we had undertaken. It had been a long, arduous road, filled with moments of doubt, fear, and uncertainty. But through it all, Karen had persevered, conquering her demons and emerging as a stronger, more compassionate individual. And in that moment, I knew that our story was one of redemption, a testament to the power of forgiveness and the transformative potential of the human spirit. No longer were we bound by the shackles of our past. Instead, we had forged a bond that transcended the boundaries of our previous conflict, a bond rooted in mutual understanding, respect, and a shared commitment to growth. As we said our goodbyes and parted ways, I couldn't help but feel a sense of profound gratitude, not just for the second chance I had granted Karen, but for the opportunity to witness her remarkable journey firsthand. It was a reminder that even the most seemingly intractable challenges can be overcome, that growth and change are always within reach, if only we are willing to embrace them. And as I looked to the future, I knew that our story was far from over, that the journey we had embarked upon was just the beginning of a lifetime of friendship, laughter, and the boundless possibilities that come with the courage to forgive.